I bought myself this coffee maker at the end of 2022. And for a brief period in time, I was probably the world's leading expert on mid-range, non-professional espresso makers available on the market. I watched videos, I read reviews, I learned what I wanted, what I didn't want, which ones had good reviews, and why. I visited them in stores, I researched prices, then I bought. And as it turned out, it actually requires an advanced degree in chemistry to dial in a decent shot of espresso, which I still haven't figured out completely. That's what I went through just to buy this coffee maker. I mean, you don't want to see me when I'm trying to buy a car or plan a vacation. It's just a whole different level. But sometimes when I'm working with buyers, I feel like you guys are making your decisions based on just purely emotional responses to things. And buying a home is a whole different level from buying a little espresso maker. So let's talk about some of the things that you should be researching. Let's go sit down and talk about this. I'm going to divide this up into 3 parts. How to research the area, how to research the house online, or as I like to call it, online stalking, and finally, how to research the house once you're there in person. So let's start off with figuring out where you want to live. Many of you don't really have any solid idea of where you want to be, and that's okay. But that leads me to sending you lists of homes that consist of 487 houses, and that's just a lot to take in. Or when I ask you what you're looking for in a home, you tell me simply, I don't want carpet and it needs to have a fence. Those are things that I can't really search for, and those are things that can be changed. So that's not what I'm talking about. So let's try to narrow down a neighborhood. Here are some things that you can look into. First of all, crime maps. There are a couple of things that your realtor can't really talk to you about, and one of them is a common theme. It's when a client says, I really want to live in a safe neighborhood. But let's look at how you can determine that for yourself online. Online crime maps is one way. Also, many local police departments have Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts. You can also call the non-emergency number and ask to speak to someone about crime in a specific neighborhood. And they can probably give you a good idea of what the nature of the crimes are in that area. This is something from the Sanford, Florida Police Department, and they usually have a pretty good sense of humor. So this was, I guess, somebody was breaking into cars and stealing stuff, and the hashtags are hashtag you are on the naughty list and hashtag not how you knock out your holiday shopping. So in any case, you can probably get an idea of what's going on in a community, what the types of crimes are that you would expect to see. And it's not meant to, there's going to be crime everywhere is what I'm getting at, but at least you can see the nature of the crimes by doing this. Secondly, is there something that you just can't tolerate being near? Like, for example, a jail. I'm not talking about living right next door to a jail, and I was honestly really struggling to come up with a good example, but let's say, for example, your spouse travels a lot and you're not comfortable being within 3 miles of a jail because you spend a lot of time alone and you're scared. I mean, if a jail is just a huge no for you, look at where the jails are and don't look near them for houses. Other things to consider and maybe let your agent help you with are something that comes up commonly, power lines. There are very nice neighborhoods that have power lines running through them. If you hate that, let us know. Jump on Google Maps and view the street view of the homes you're interested in before you get too far or fall too in love with any home. Now, if you have a slightly higher budget, do consider schools, even if you don't have kids. It's going to help your resale value down the line. Of course, the best schools are generally in more desirable areas, which means the price is going to be higher. So if your budget isn't particularly high, this may be one of those things that you can just toss out, let go. Consider your distance to work, but honestly, I'm kind of torn on this one. Sometimes folks tell me that they need to be within, 15 minutes of work, but then a year later, their office moves and suddenly they're 45 minutes away from work. If you don't think your job will move, then definitely go for it. If it might, then just do your best to come up with an area that's fairly close. Now, finally, here's one of those questions that I probably get once or twice a year. And as much as I'd rather never have to talk about it, I do have to sometimes. And that is, my family and I don't want to live near, and here insert whatever group of people you like. I'm going to try to devise an example that hopefully won't offend anyone. So let's pretend that you don't want to live near any celebrities. It's not something that a realtor can really help you with. There are just things that we cannot ethically discuss or work on. And it's called steering when we look for a particular home based on characteristics of the people living around it. Also, keep in mind whatever you're trying to avoid is probably already here in Central Florida. We do have celebrities. So all this to say that some of this stuff that you care about is something that you're really going to have to research on your own, and I want you to be equipped to be able to do that. When you're looking online at houses, here are some things I'd like you to consider. Many of you just kind of get wrapped up in the photos, especially if they're really great quality, and you kind of forget to look out, or you don't know to look out for other things. But here's what I look for as a realtor when I'm looking at photos online.
So here I just want to show you how I would go about looking through photos that I see on the MLS. And I just want to show you the things that I look for. So right here in this room, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but there is a water stain on the ceiling. It could be just condensation coming in from the AC duct. It could be a roof leak. It's not brown, but it's there. I see some sort of discoloration. Another thing that I see here, these doors are painted green. And that's probably the sort of thing that's, when you get in and look at it up close, it's going to be all chipped. It might be kind of difficult to maintain. Same thing is true with painted cabinetry. These have not been painted, but sometimes they look really nice on the photos, but when you get there in person, not so much. Here's another example of something that I would look for. This is not tile. This is a linoleum floor, this green. So that's the sort of thing that you're probably going to have to replace pretty soon. A lot of times they're torn over time. It's like a feature of when was this hunter green popular? Like early 90s, I think. Here's another property that some clients of mine liked today. And just looking right away, I can see that there's like a lot of chipping in this door. It looks like the house probably needs a fresh power washing. You've got some dead plants. It's usually an indication of what's to come inside. Right here, I see that the stucco has been repaired but not repainted. Okay, this is interesting. So here we have, these look like maybe moving blankets, the kind of things that you use to protect your furniture, and they have them hanging up in the house, which tells me, well, I don't know why they didn't just get regular curtains or blinds or something like that, but the sun is probably coming through here really, really, it makes the room too hot or something like that, which is very common in Florida. So that could be an indication that the windows could be updated, or that the AC is insufficiently cooling the house. That's what I see when I look at this. And here's a really important thing to look at when you're looking at bathroom photos. Okay, so I see a couple of things of importance. First of all, this tile has been mismatched. So they had to retile part of the bathroom. They did, I guess, the best that they could, but they were not able to find an exact match. And then down here, I see that the shower has frequently oversprayed. They weren't pulling the shower curtain tight. But down here, they have repaired the wall, which, there could be rot beneath that. You just don't know until you've kind of pulled that apart. Here, the pool and the screen enclosure area we can see are not being very well maintained. The pool is murky. The screen enclosure needs to be power washed. It's just, there's just a lot of deferred maintenance. This fence. So, unless this house is like a really, really good price, this would be one it's going to require a lot of work.
Okay, so that's part one of online stalking. Part two is Googling the address. Search for news articles, search by the name of the community, search by the street name, just see what comes up. And did you know that you can actually research permits online? You have to figure out what jurisdiction the home is in, and you can search for permit records and also usually code enforcement violations. So, for example, if a home is in the city of Altamont Springs, you can search for a permit by Googling City of Altamont Springs and permit or building department, and you should be able to access their online database. I'm not going to list every jurisdiction here, but most of them are going to have a searchable permit database, and many of them will have those code enforcement violations online too. Now, of course, your title company is going to search for open permits, expired permits, and any code enforcement violations, but this is something you can do before you even make an offer, just to kind of see what's going on at that house. And if it's not in the city proper and you're not finding any records, you might have to search by county. Now, if the home is especially old or historic, sometimes the local history museum will have a file on your home, and that's very interesting. Sometimes they include old photos or a list of previous inhabitants who lived in the home. They have those from the old phone books. It's something to look into. It's not necessarily necessary before buying, but ultimately it's very satisfying if you find a file on your house. Lastly, let's check out what you can further understand when you go to visit a home in person. Now, I'm not a home inspector, but I do have enough experience over the years to know some things that you should really be looking out for. And so here are some things to look for. Around the outside of the house, now when you're outside checking out the yard and the fence, look at the house. Are there cracks in the stucco? Are there drainage patterns in the grass? Is water pooling anywhere? Is the driveway really cracked up? Are the neighboring houses higher up than the one that you're looking at? We want to look at this because rain is a really big deal in Central Florida, and water causes a lot of damage. So those are some of the things that I want you to consider when you're looking at the outside of the house. A home inspector is going to go around inside with a moisture detecting device and check around the windows and usually along the floorboards to see if there's unusually high moisture levels. But you can often see things like cracking, and I'm not talking about structural cracking, just small cracks on the outside, but just fine little cracks where you can tell that water might be getting in or has already caused some sort of damage. Look around the entry and exit to bathtubs and showers for soft spots and repaired areas. Look around exterior doors for rotten wood around the trim, as that's another area of concern. Water has been splashing back up and rotting that wood. If there's a skylight, look up at it. Look for moisture damage around there. Look for differences in the finish on the ceiling and differences in the paint finish to see if something has been recently painted over. Don't forget to check out the water heater. Not the water heater itself, but that's usually where pest control stickers are placed if the home has been recently treated. That's definitely something to check out. Look at the AC vents. Is there a plume of black coming out of it? That's an indication that the filters haven't been changed regularly. Look at the flooring. Now, I realize that many buyers can't really tell the difference between wood floor and laminate floor, but if you see puffiness around the edge of each individual floorboard, that is an indication that water has intruded. Now, it can be something simple like the owner watered their Christmas tree and overfilled it. It overflowed and they didn't notice, and it, damaged the boards from above. I've actually heard of that exact thing happening. But it can be something serious like a crack in the slab and water is coming in from below. It may not be possible in your first visit to the home to answer why there was water there, but it's good to notice, and you can ask those questions to the listing agent. The more of these little signs you see, the more likely it is that the home hasn't really been well maintained or well loved. Perhaps it was a rental. Perhaps it just wasn't the homeowner's main priority, or maybe they really didn't understand how to keep up a home. But I'd rather have a home from the 1970s that Mr. and Mrs. Clean lived in, who have every single record meticulously maintained, even if the finishes of the home are outdated. I'd rather have that than one that's decades newer but hasn't been maintained at all. Look for a well-loved home. Buying a home can be, of course, a terrifying process because you're taking on a lot of debt. And in this video, I hope that I've given you some things to think about to make the home buying experience a little bit more pleasant after you've closed. Now, if you have any pointers that I've left out, please drop a comment below. And this isn't really just a shameless plug looking for more interaction on my channel. I really do mean it. I always love when people share their knowledge and their experience for other buyers. Thanks for watching, thanks for your time, and I'll see you next time.